Good morning, fourth graders. Today we are on lesson 8 on page 201 of your student journal, and we are doing something a little bit different than we have been doing. We are going to be continuing talking about angles, but today we are going to be actually measuring them and not estimating them like we've done in the past. So you are going to need some tools for today. So our first tool you're going to need is a protractor. So it looks like this. It looks like half a circle, and they're usually clear. So they might be like a clear blue, but it's usually see-through. Now, if you have one of these at home, great. That's the only tool you're going to need other than your pencil. If you don't have one of these at home, I have asked your teacher to include a link on today's assignment where you could print one that looks like this. So if you don't have one, please print one, and I'm going to show you right now how to cut this out. So it should be cut out. I just did a little slit there so I could get inside. Now you might want to watch first before you start cutting. I don't want to cut all the way through. When I get to this middle line, I want to cut down all the way to the bottom black line, and I'm going to cut across on this. So I'll show you what this looks like when I'm done. But this would be the goal, to have yours cut like this. And it doesn't have to be perfect. Mine's a little messy right there, but I cut along this black line. That's called the baseline. But I did not want to cut out this. It's called the center or the origin. So I left a little bit of space here. And now I'm going to do the same on this side. I'm going to do a little slit to get my scissors in. And I'm going to cut underneath my numbers. And then I'm going to cut across on the baseline. And then I'm going to cut up on the middle and try and keep it from falling apart, and then cut across. So again, it doesn't have to be perfect, but that's about the goal. And then just because I don't need the whole paper, I'm going to cut this paper off. I probably won't cut out that shape. I'll just leave it like this. So if you have a plastic one, that's all you really need. A ruler would be helpful, especially if you have the paper one. So these are my tools I'm going to be using today. Okay, so our goal today is, we're going to go back to our goal today, or our objective. Today I will draw and measure angles. I will draw and measure angles. Okay, so we've been really just estimating angles to this point. Okay, so let's look at our vocabulary. We see the word angle, and we already know what an angle is. They're reminding us that the point here is the vertex, and that this could be called angle CAB, CAB, or BAC, or angle A. It could not be BCA though. We can't go off the angle. Then it lets us know that a protractor is the tool used to measure angle openings. And then it lets us know what the protractor parts are. So it kind of tells us about the protractor parts here. So let's look at these protractor parts. So the first thing I see is, right here they call this the baseline. This is our baseline. And then they tell us this is our center or our origin. Then we have two sets of numbers, this inner scale and outer scale. So this inner set of numbers and the outer set of numbers. And they both go from 0 to 180, but I'll be showing you why they have the inner scale and outer scale. Sometimes you'll use the inner ones, and sometimes you'll use the outer numbers. Okay, they also give us a lot of steps here. I'm not going to read those for you, but if you feel that that would be helpful to you and you're feeling stuck, you might want to stop and read them. But I'm just going to jump right in and get started. Okay, so my first problem, ladies and gentlemen, looks like this. And it says, Sergio's car was taken away by a tow truck. What is the measure of the angle formed by the bottom of the car and the street? Okay, so this is the street, and this is the bottom of the car, and this is the angle they want me to measure. Okay, so this would be my vertex, and those are the two rays making up the angle. Okay, when you use a protractor, what you need to do is this bottom ray, you need to line up on your baseline. This vertex is supposed to go right in the center there. That's why they're usually clear. So I'm going to scoot this over, and I'm going to set mine up the best I can, and that's what it looks like. Okay, so what I see here is because this bottom ray is here, I'm not going to start with the 180. I'm going to start with the 0. When you're counting, you always start with the 0. So I'm on the inner scale here because I'm starting with the 0. So I see 0, 10, 20, and I might use my ruler to help me see it. I think it's right. I see 0, 10, 20, and it's past the 20, but not at the 30, and I think it's 25. So I'm going to say it's 25 degrees. Okay, let's see another one. This says, use a protractor to use a protractor to find the measure of the angle. So this angle. Okay, so I could trace it, but I think this one, it's really clear what they want. So this bottom ray, I'm going to line up on my baseline, and this vertex right here, I'm going to make sure is in the middle here. So here's my vertex. I'm going to line that line up as straight as I can, and here is my angle. My angle's right there. Okay, let's try and get this. Sorry, I moved it by accident. Okay, ready? So since my bottom ray is on this side again, I'm using this 0, and it looks to me like, let's see, 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 110, and it looks like it was between the 110, 120, so I'm going to say 115. That is how I would have done that. Okay, so let's try some together, ladies and gentlemen. You're on page 202. And here is my first one. Patricia's rose bushes receive the most sunlight at 10:30 a.m. when the sun is at a 50-degree angle in relation to the horizon line. Draw the angle. Okay, so this is where it said in our objective, they want us to draw the angle. Okay, so this is my vertex, and here is my first ray. So I'm going to set up my vertex. I wish it could be in that point, but then I can't quite see it. So, and here is my ray. You can barely see it under there. Okay, so since my ray is pointing here, I see 0 and 180, so we're going to use our inner scale again for the 0. So I have 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, and they want it at 50. So they want it right there. You could trace it here, but I think it's easiest just to make a dot, and then I'll go move my paper and make my next ray. So here is my ray. And that angle is a 50-degree angle. And that makes sense because I know that a perfect L is 90, so that makes sense that that one is 50. Okay, let's look at our next one. Jody's car broke down and had to be towed to the mechanic. As the car was put on the tow truck, the ramp raised it at an angle with the road. What is the measure of the angle? So we see the tow truck right here, and we see the road, and this is the angle they want. Okay, so this is my vertex, and here's my two rays. My vertex, remember, goes in the center or origin, and my ray gets lined up on my baseline. Okay, so this time, notice that when I look at my ray, I see a 180 and a 0. I'm going to start at 0, which means I'm using my outer scale this time. So I don't even really need my ruler this time because it was so short and it goes right there. So to me it looks like it's 0, 10, and it looks to me like it's pointing at the 20. So I would say that's a 20-degree angle. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're feeling okay with that. You only have 2 problems today on page 203. If you were unable to have a plastic protractor or you were unable to print the paper protractor, please reach out to your teacher today. Okay, have a nice afternoon. Bye-bye.